Good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to the organizers of this conference for inviting me to speak at this event. Due to the huge time difference between our respective time zones, I have been asked by the organizers to give a pre-recorded talk, so my apologies for the inconvenience, if any. Let me introduce myself, my work, how I got into this place and into the climate movement. My name is Salman Zafar, and my core areas of expertise are waste management, renewable energy, environmental protection, sustainable development, and related areas. I am the founder of EcoMENA, which is a Qatar-based environmental advocacy organization. And in addition, I am the CEO of Bioenergy Consult, which is an India-based consulting firm active in the field of biomass energy and waste management. As far as my educational background is concerned, I have bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering from Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh, India. I'm proactively engaged in creating mass environmental awareness through my popular websites, blogs, and social media channels. I'm a prolific professional writer and have authored more than 2,000 articles in books, journals, magazines, newsletters, and websites on climate change related issues. In 2012, I seriously started climate change advocacy through the launch of EcoMENA. EcoMENA is a volunteer-driven initiative to raise environmental awareness and promote sustainable development in the MENA region and elsewhere. During the last 10 years or so, we have created a niche of our own in the MENA region and have a free online knowledge bank of around 1,000 high-quality reports, analysis, and articles in English and Arabic, catering to almost all the areas of climate change and environmental sector. Our website is one of the most popular environmental resource website in the MENA region and visited by more than 3,000 unique visitors every day. Our findings, data, and information are widely cited in policy studies, scientific research, industrial projects, and business case studies all over the Middle East as well as in other parts of the world. In addition, we have very good following on social media, especially Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So the next question that has been given to me is what do you think are the greatest signs of hope for fighting climate change? The first sign that I have noticed is that after so many years of research, we can now quantify and qualify the drivers of climate change, classify them, and calculate them, all with increasingly better data. And the next step is to develop real-time estimates and robust future projections. Secondly, while the world as a whole keeps on increasing emissions, several countries have begun to reduce their carbon footprint. In fact, around 41 countries, including major economies such as the US, Germany, and the UK, have been reducing their emissions since the year 2000. Another 30 countries have declined their emissions on a per capita basis, which is still too little, but it shows that it is possible to reduce emissions while still growing the economy. A small but growing number of countries have already achieved net zero emissions, and they have formed a formal alliance at COP26, underscoring their will to stay at net zero. Another sign of hope is our reduced dependence on fossil fuels to power our lives. During the past decades, solar and wind power have grown from 1.7% of the global electricity consumption to around 8.7%, which is a major increase. In the US, solar and wind deployments are on track to hit new records in 2022. If we talk about the international scenario, renewable energy capacity is forecasted to increase by over 60% between 2020 and 2026, reaching capacity that will be equivalent to the current combined global power capacity of fossil fuels and nuclear energy. Another interesting and highly promising development has been the emergence of children and youngsters in the global climate movement. Whether it is standing their ground at the Dakota Access Pipeline protest or addressing world leaders in the conference rooms of COP26. Young people are raising their voices in a way that has been never seen before, and they are demanding that the grown-ups in the room actually do something. And the good news is that this is working. Where are we in trouble? The current climate crisis is a global injustice. The countries least responsible for global warming and biodiversity loss are facing the harshest consequences. We have very good examples from small countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bangladesh, which are facing disastrous consequences due to climate change and global warming. Because of this imbalance, high-income countries promised in 2009 to provide $100 billion in annual climate finance by 2020 to help low-income countries adapt to climate change. Unfortunately, countries have failed to realize this commitment. Not only that, the true cost of adapting to climate change is far greater than $100 billion annually. So even reaching this amount will be insufficient. In 2022, these high-income countries must fulfill the original climate change pledge in and then go beyond it to ensure that all countries can adequately adapt to climate change and transition their economies to a low carbon economy. This funding should also come in the form of grants rather than loans to prevent low income countries from being further burdened with debt. The next question is, what areas of intervention are the most important? Should we focus on personal actions, pushing governments, pressurizing businesses, or something else? Well, in my opinion, climate change is a planetary scale threat, and as such, it requires planetary scale reforms that can be implemented by the world's governments. Individuals can at most be responsible for their own behavior, but governments have the power, the authority to implement legislation that can compel industries and businesses to act sustainably. Although the power of consumers is strong, it pales in comparison to that of international corporations, and only governments have the power to keep these interests in check. Asking individuals to bear the burden of global warming shift the responsibilities from those who are meant to protect to those who are meant to be protected. We need to hold governments to the responsibilities first and foremost. Individual actions can reduce global greenhouse gas emissions to a limited extent, and it is up to the businesses and governments need to take responsibility for curbing industrial emissions. MENA region has been among the hardest hit by the climate crisis. Are there climate solutions you think especially need to be implemented in the region? Well, climate change is a major governance challenge in the Middle East, but water and food availability in the region is seriously affected by unsustainable groundwater extraction, demographic changes, and unregulated transboundary water movement. Middle East countries have made modest commitments to climate change mitigation and adaptation, with most progress coming in the form of clean energy investments. However, there is scope for more effective regional cooperation on climate change through organizations like the League of Arab States or the Organization of Islamic Countries and the Gulf Cooperation Council. There is a recognition by many states in the Middle East that there needs to be a shift to a low carbon model of economic development, although regional policies for climate change and economic integration are sufficiently weak. In recent years, we have been witnessing massive clean energy investments in the renewable energy sector in the past few years in the Middle East. However, this needs to be supplemented by initiatives to reduce heavy reliance on seawater desalination, energy efficiency, green transport, sustainable waste management, and sustainable agriculture. The next question is, are there people you think need to be heard more in the climate movement? How do we make sure that their voices are represented? Activism has historically been perceived as a white and middle class pursuit. However, things have been changing steadily. In the last few years, we have been hearing voices from Black, Asian, and minority groups as well. However, there is a need for more participation from Black, Brown, and working classes as they don't really get much opportunity to share their climate change grievances than white people do. The last question is what should youth activists know as they engage in this work? What's your top piece of advice? Youth activists can be a powerful force against climate change. There are many ways youngsters can turn the tide against climate change. They can bring ideas into practice, bring innovation in the struggle against climate change, create a demand for sustainability, change consumer behavior, and alter public attitude. Needless to say, our future is at stake and we need to pool our resources and raise our collective voices to a level when governments and big corporations cannot ignore the looming environmental catastrophe. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found my talk interesting.